All right. Thank you everyone for joining us today for In Conversation with Sharon Felten, Heather Goodchild, and Ann Willey. I am Melissa Ralsted, the Executive Director of the Wisconsin Museum of Quilts and Fiber Arts. WMQFA is a nonprofit museum dedicated to fiber art, and we are located just 30 minutes north of Milwaukee. I'd like to thank Jan Schley for her support today, as well as the Wisconsin Arts Board with additional support from the National Endowment for the Arts. Today's program is free, but donations are greatly appreciated and ensure that we are able to continue offering programs like this. We will post donation links in the chat. Please give generously. A few housekeeping items. Please post your questions in the chat or the Q&A. We'll be monitoring those as we go. And if you are joining us on Facebook, feel free to post those questions in the discussion. We'll be monitoring that as well in real time. We are recording today's program and we will upload it to the museum's YouTube channel. So if you miss anything, don't worry, you can watch it as many times as you'd like. And if you enjoy programs like this one, I encourage you to subscribe for free to the museum's channel. We have dozens of other programs available to watch as well. And today I'm delighted to be joined by three amazing artists. Sharon, Heather, and Ann all have work in the museum's current exhibition, Hooked by Design, which is open through February 20th and brings together contemporary fiber artists whose work speaks to the expansive landscape of today's rug hooking community. Sharon Felten has lived in the Milwaukee area all of her life. She is married with a blended family of 8 children and 13 grandchildren. She worked as a decorative painter with faux finishes, murals on walls, and furniture for over 20 years. Through her church, she began dabbling in candle decorating along with many other ministries that she holds near and dear to her heart. In addition, she loves to nurture with her baking and food, but she also loves to garden, which has led her to alternative medicine. So staying busy is not a problem for her. Heather Goodchild in Toronto has exhibited her multidisciplinary work, including textiles, painting, ceramic, and installations since 2002. She received the Chalmers Art Fellowship in 2019 and was recently at the Varda Artists Residence Program in California and the Scapellos, am I saying that right?
Scapellos, yeah.
For the art in Greece. She has exhibited at the Textile Museum of Canada, was the artist in residence at the Art Gallery of Ontario, and in summer of 2022 will exhibit at IA&A at Hillier in Washington, DC. And then Ann describes herself as a contemporary folk artist and sees herself as a storyteller working with narratives from myths, folklore, and poetry. She studied printmaking in college, followed by many years working as a graphic artist and illustrator. While raising her family, she became interested in traditional fiber arts, settling on rug hooking as the technique that most captured what she loved about printmaking and graphic arts. After many years of exhibiting her rug hookings alongside her paintings, she now concentrates primarily on painting in her studio in Michigan. She has a line of cards and prints that she adds to every year and sells nationally, and her original paintings are exhibited at Higher Art Gallery in Traverse City, Michigan, where she recently participated in the exhibition Myth, Tales, and Icons. She continues to treasure the medium of rug hooking and continues to love the depth of color and the physicality that working with wool brings to her imagery. And many of her rug hookings were featured in the book Rug Hooking Journeys by Tamara Pavich in 2019. So thank you, all three of you, for joining us today. I'm really excited to be chatting with all of you. So why don't we jump right in? First question, how did each of you get started rug hooking? And I'll pick on somebody. So, Ann, why don't you let us know, how did you first get started rug hooking?
Oh, well, I started, first of all, I got into rug hooking through my mom. After I had left for college and was, away from home, she got into rug hooking, and I didn't pay too much attention, but I saw some beautiful things she was making. And at the point where I was raising kids and working freelance, I was needing a new medium. I was attracted to textile arts, but I didn't settle on anything until my mom kind of decided she was not going to hook anymore and presented me with all this beautiful wool. And once I saw the wool, yeah, I just fell in love. Colors are just so gorgeous. And I also saw that it had potential for my style of imagery. And I could see how woodcuts and all could be translated into this medium. And so I just took off from there and started showing the wool hookings with my paintings at a gallery and continued on from there. So.
And Heather, what about you?
My great aunt was a rug hooker, so that's how I knew about the technique. But I started doing it when I was preparing an installation exhibition. And the idea was that I was creating interiors in which the decorative arts told a story. So the curtains, the quilts, the wallpaper, everything was telling part of this narrative. And I needed a rug. So I remembered my great aunt's practice and I made one. And I kind of got hooked from there. And like Anne was saying, the wool, and I had trained in fashion design when I went to college. And I think that sort of combination of the art and the fabric has made it one of my primary mediums, sort of alongside painting. Yeah, so that's how I started.
And Sharon, what about you?
Well, I started back in the 70s when I was pregnant with my first baby, and I went to a class. I waddled in very pregnant, and these little grandmas were just tickled pink that this young thing wanted to learn their craft. So I started with this little, it was going to be a chair pad, but it did end up turning into a footstool. But I didn't finish it. It got rolled up and put in a box, and life went on. And when he turned 32, I found it and it resurrected itself. And then it just went from there. So it's just been, yeah, it's been a lot of fun working with, I've always worked with crewel pictures and with embroidery from my grandmother when I was really little. So it just was a natural thing to want to continue with the wool. And like Anne and Heather had said, the colors in wool are just phenomenal, and the textures that you get with wool is really, really awesome. So it's been fun to, and being in the guild that I'm in with so many talented ladies, it's like, okay, there's a lot to go from there. Yeah.
One of the things I find interesting, all three of you mentioned family influences. Whether, it's a grandmother, an aunt, but somebody that helped to kind of guide you into this, or at least give you your first instance of it. And we see that so much with fiber, whether it's rug hooking or other types of fiber art too. So now it also sounds like all of you have arts backgrounds of some sort and have been involved in other arts, whether it's, Heather, you mentioned fashion design. What drew you specifically to rug hooking? Why rug hooking? Why fiber?
I think for me, it was just a real natural extension because I was into fabric. And like Heather, I worked with a lot of fabrics in the rooms that I was painting. So it just was kind of this natural extension, and the wool itself, it's like, whoa. So yeah. And that's where learning rug hooking in my later years it's taken that medium of the paint that I did with the murals and on furniture, and I could use the wool as a different medium of hooking. And then once I learned the blending of, it was like, oh, I was like a kid in a candy store. So yeah. Does that make any sense? I don't know.
Definitely. I think rug hooking is very similar to painting in many ways. And you think you know, the beauty of a tapestry, but when you're making a tapestry, it's very controlled because you're one line at a time and you know,
Right.
you have to go with a plan. But with rug hooking, it has more of the freedom of painting in that you can take things out and change things, and as you're going, the process is more like painting. I think it's more creative in that way and free as because a lot of textile arts are very controlled, and once you start on a path, you have to continue down that path. But with rug hooking, I find, you know, you can kind of go freestyle in a way that is very exciting, and I don't know, it's taking fabric into this whole new world for me that is like painting in that creative way.
Yeah, I also found it very similar to painting. The way I could work and I could change my mind, and not as long as I didn't do it too much and, you know, make the backing get too stretched out. But yeah, there's a flexibility there. You can work kind of intuitively and improvise. And you're working with these amazing colors, and yeah, and also for me, I think I stuck with it. It worked for me because I was in a small apartment with small house with my children, and I could pick it up, put it down, you know, just like all the traditional arts that women would do. You know, there's nothing toxic about it. I didn't have to worry about paint sitting out somewhere drying or anything. It was just so flexible. It fit into my day. So I just embraced it and really, you know, just kept at it. And it just seemed to fit that niche very well for me.
All three of you have also mentioned the impact of wool and a love of wool a couple of times now. So what is it about wool that draws you so much? I mean, Sharon, you referenced colors, but is it just the different shades that you can get, or is there something about wool that the three of you all love?
I don't know. I think just the fact that, you know, it came from a sheep, you know, and it's been worked and it's natural, and it just has such a wonderful feel to it. And especially with all the textures, it's like I mean, you can do different things with paints. You know, there's watercolors and there's oils and thick and thin, but there's just something about the warmth. I think it's the warmth of it that just, and it kind of takes me back to ancestors that did it. And there's just something special about that old world craft that, you know, people say, if they ask me what I do, I say, I'm a rug hooker. Oh, you do that latch. And no. No, it's not latch hooking. So, I mean, it's such a lost art. So this is really, really nice that the Quilt Museum has, you know, taken and put on a display, and all of the ladies that put rugs in different areas. It's nice that we're bringing it back. So.
And Heather, what is it about wool that the two of you love?
I think for me, I mean, it's so beautiful. The sheep thing as well is very romantic, and I think it's the way the light, as in contrast with paint, the way the light absorbs, like it's this richness when you look at a textile piece that's very different. And because wool is so dense, I think it's even more rich than, say, a cotton. And I also love the way dye reacts with wool. Like I do a lot of acid chemical as well as natural dyeing, and the colors you can get with wool, I think because there's always that baseline of this slight creamy naturalness that you can never really get rid of. So you're always working with this warmth as a baseline for making your colors that I think always reads through. Also, the blacks you can get with wool are so beautiful. And I love doing areas that are just black, and just how the light hits it, and it's so mysterious and dark and wonderful. So yeah, it's a beautiful fiber. It really is.
Well, and even
Yeah.
within the blacks, you can get so much variation depending on what you started with too.
Mhm. And this is one of my favorite things of old rugs that you see. They'll have done like a black Scotty dog or something, but you'll see they've used all these different blacks, like from a coat, or it's obviously fabric they've cut out from garments, and they're similar but different, like a green black, a red black, and like all these different colors of black. So
Yeah.
it's wonderful to see that.
Yeah, I love working with the wool in the dye bath and just playing with all the potential shades you can get and marrying all the colors together, and they all absorb a little bit of each other, and you get this nice harmonious batch. But it's just a wonderful material to work with, and I had made some notes about it, and I used all the same words that Heather and Sharon were using about the warmth and the richness and the way the light hits it. And there is something about it being a rug hooking with the loops, and there's little shadows, and so the surface is kind of moving and it's alive. If you do it right, it seems like it's a living thing, when you get a good rug hooking done. So.
And it's also meditative. There's just
Yeah.
something about pulling those loops and working one after the other. It's meditative. It's really, and if you're listening to something, it really becomes just enjoyably fun. So yeah, it goes either way.
That's good to find something that's actually fun. And that actually, leads to my next question. Where do you find inspiration? I mean, you've all mentioned, other arts and obviously the wool. Are there other things that inspire you?
I think for myself, when I get an idea, oh boy, it sort of just goes from there. Like when I was working on my barn rug, I had this photo of this old barn, but all of a sudden you see barns everywhere, and those barns all come to life. And you didn't see those barns before you were working on a barn rug. I don't know if you ladies have found that, but it can drive me crazy. Or if I was working on a mural, I would need clouds. I would be constantly looking at the clouds. So I think the inspiration for me comes everywhere, whether it be in nature, on a card, in my church. It's everywhere. Once I get that main idea, it doesn't shut off. Unfortunately, it can be a nuisance sometimes. So yeah.
Yeah, I really understand that. It's like, oh, sorry, Anne. It's like a compulsion when you have an idea and it just comes to you. I don't know where they come from, but and then you're fixated and you have to execute it. And I think that gives you the energy to sort of go through the process of making the rug, because it takes a long time, and I think you need a big inspiration in order to get through a rug. I recently I've been using my paintings as inspiration, but previous to that, I think like Anne, I was using a lot of mythology and storytelling and narrative. But yeah, like Sharon, everywhere and anywhere it's coming in. So
Yeah, everywhere is, potential material to work with. So I get a lot of inspiration from nature, and still from a story will spark some fascination for me. And I just find poems will do that. And so I always have my antenna out, and I've done little series on seedlings and things like that have just captured my interest, and just everything and anything really can be worked into your pieces. So stay open. Yeah.
Heather, you mentioned it can take a long time. How long does it actually take you guys to make a rug? I mean, I know size has an effect, obviously, but you know, for somebody who hasn't done something like this, how long does it take?
Really
Well,
varies. Yeah,
yeah,
go ahead,
go ahead.
Heather.
I mean, it depends how much you're working on it, really. Usually I can only work on them for like maximum 3 hours a day, or I start getting strained, you know.
Yeah.
So I try to only do it in the evening. It's like, that's my rug hooking time and I really look forward to it. But for one occasion, I had to do one quickly, and it wasn't one of the normal size. It was smaller. It was around 2.5 by 3.5 feet, and I got it done in just over a month. But I was wrecked. So it takes a really long time. I don't know. I was working on it 8 hours a day, but you know, I was dyeing fabric and I was ripping stuff out and I was changing things. And I think it depends on how tight your loops are and how big your loops are and how, you know, how much shading you're doing, how many color changes you're doing. So there's a lot of variables, but it does take a long time. And I think seeing all those videos on the internet of people needle punching with the big gun, you're just like, oh God, they're so fast. It's a bit disheartening, but then, you know, like Sharon, I love just sitting and listening to an audiobook and making the loops. So it's a meditation. It's necessary in my life, and I'm not gonna go and get a gun to needle punch. I wouldn't give it up. So
I worked pretty small when I first started, especially, and but it'd still take me a long time because I would just fuss over the colors. They had to be just right. And, you know, and then I was showing them about once a year. I would have a show, and, you know, I would have like maybe 8 pieces, fairly small pieces. So, you know, it's, I guess it's as much time, it will absorb as much time as you want to give it, you know, it's just, yeah. So but it is a lovely meditative process. So I always looked forward to it. I did find over time though, that my hands could not take that intensity anymore. And I had to take kind of an extended break from rug hooking, and just let my hands heal. And no, I just do 1 or 2 a year, and they are fairly larger, a little larger, but not still relatively small rug hooking. So that's what, you know, where I ended up. So still love it.
I tend to have a couple of projects going. I'll have a big rug, like my poppy rug that was in the show. That rug took 3 to 4 years, but it is in a narrow cut of a number 3 and 4. And after a rug gets to be so big, it's really hard to take it to places to hook, like our meetings. So then I will gravitate to a smaller piece to take along with me because it's easier to transport. So yeah, it's fun to have different sizes to work on depending on what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for each of you, what's your favorite part of the artistic process?
Well, I like that when you can get in a zone with it and just you're hooking away, and it's that meditative part that Sharon and Heather have both talked about, just that it's a really nice, you can set a nice pace, and it's, you know, it's very special. I think maybe all handcrafts have that, and there's just the repetition, and yeah, it's a very nice meditative mindset. And but I also like preparation. I love gathering ideas and, you know, all that work too. So yeah.
I totally agree. Yeah, it is. It's once everything is in place, woo, then it's fun. Then it's fun to go. But the beginning of it, just like you said, Anne, it's like, oh, that part's fun. I mean, because your mind can go a gazillion miles a minute and come up with the ideas, and then I'll take it to a sketch pad. And then it has to go from that sketch pad to the foundation, and then the wools are picked. And so that part isn't quite as intriguing to me as when you finally, like you said, that meditative part of when it's all together and you can just go with it, then it's cool. But then you have to finish it. And I'm finding that, oh, I had a stack of things. I'm like, all right, you are finishing before you start anything. So yeah.
I totally agree with the sort of design and then getting it on the burlap. I mean, it is exciting to see what you're going to come up with, but it is fraught, and you're just so relieved when you get to sit down and it's all ready to go. I like to dye the fabric as I'm working, so I love that process too of dyeing and just getting new colors and running out of colors and making new colors along the way. And finishing is always a pain in the ass. I always find that to be the thing I least look forward to, putting the binding on, and you got to do it. Usually there's a deadline for that. I'll have finished the rug, but I won't have, wrapped it up until it has to go somewhere. So
Now,
yeah.
Heather, is that because you don't want to say goodbye to a piece, or is that just because you just don't like putting the binding on it?
Putting the binding on it is not as fun. It's a lot of hand sewing, and it's you got to get the iron. It's just not as exciting as starting a new rug. So usually I'll just start a new one, and a deadline will loom, and I'll have to finish it, and then I will. So sometimes I'll be finishing two at the same time, which kind of makes it easier in a way, because then you're like, okay, this is what I'm doing. But
as part of the process that each of you are doing, we've kind of chatted about where you've drawn inspiration from, what your process actually is, but how do you translate that idea? Sharon, you referenced sketching, but how do you transfer that idea or inspiration into a rug? I mean, are you sketching it? Are you painting it first? Since all of you do have that sort of a painting background, how do you get from that to the rug, and are you making changes along the way?
Oh yeah, that goes without saying. I mean, I will start with my colored pencils, watercolor pencils, because they go faster, and get the main idea, and then take it to the backing and get it somewhat on there, the main thing of what you're going to hook. But then as I'm hooking, it'll change. I mean, I do a lot of we call it back hooking. So you're pulling out. Oh, that doesn't work. Okay, this will work. Okay, maybe this will work. So it just goes as the bunny that I had in the show. She was actually a Sharon Smith pattern, and I was going to do her as one, but then I changed her head. Then I changed her ears. Then she had to carry vegetables, and then she needed a doily. So it just sort of, and then finally somebody in my guild said, Sharon, stop. You have to be done, So yeah, it just sort of keeps on going on. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have I start with really rough sketches. I doodle a lot. And so when I decide I'm going to make it into rug hooking, I really start with my rough sketch. And I don't often, I've had a lot of my paintings have been translated into patterns for rug hookings by, I sell them at Spruce Ridge Studios. but I've never really done that myself. It's kind of odd, you know, hooked painting. I always start somewhere else and start with a sketch, and then I blow it up on my computer and cut out the shapes and have, you know, map the shapes and all, and then get that down on my linen, and then it's just completely changes as I hook it. And I do find I'm always adapting, and I could try a screen share. I have some little sketches that turned
absolutely.
into, let's see if I can do this. Let's see. So like this is a little rough sketch, just a little sketch in my, see, I think I have to that, and then my arrow is hidden from,
Oh, I can see it.
okay, so that's a little
Yeah.
sketch. Now I'm gonna have to go back in and find a finished piece. So it's not real quick with this. But you'll get the idea. So that's the finished
Beautiful.
piece.
Neat.
But,
Very
you know, it just, you know, just from a little rough
Beautiful.
sketch. I have one more if I can,
Mhm.
maybe I can just show it without leaving my photo album. So here's the little sketch. Then I blew it up and cut out the elements. And then here's the finished piece. So it just changes a lot in the process, and, you know, the colors. And I'll usually start with a background color. And, you know, something that I have a lot of, and then I'll just start, go from there with, you know, and I'll do work with what, you know, what I have. In the borders, I'll try to use up a lot of little ends, and yeah, it just changes over time, but that's the idea.
You are so talented. That's neat.
And Heather, what about you?
I can also screen share to talk about sort of, let's see. Okay, so earlier I used to do like just a pencil crayon drawing, and I worked with a lot of silhouettes. This was actually the first rug I made. And this is sort of the same thing. I was just working with sort of more of a folk line drawing and then coming up with the colors as I was hooking. But later I got more into using photographs and paintings. I don't know if we can, there's the painting that this rug is based on. So for this, I was being very sort of exact with colors and trying to make it exactly like the painting to see if I could sort of capture the energy of the painting in the rug hooking. This one, I was really trying to go for this like free form abstract feeling in the painting. So I wasn't being very free with my rug hooking for this because I wanted to like capture the painting. You can see though the colors are, they were similar, but they're much richer in the wool. But then this one, kind of going back, but then using that painterly approach, but this is totally like all of this was just done freeform. I just started this rug with this figure, and then I kind of made up the rest as I went along. So that was sort of a different approach. This was sort of a combo. I had like a base painting I was using, but then I sort of figured it out. And then for one of the rugs in the show, I went back to the idea of using a painting directly. So this is the reference painting, and then that's what happened. So that was really fun. So I like to kind of go back and forth between doing more of a freestyle and really being strict about recreating something.
Heather, it's so interesting to find out that that piece was inspired by a painting. One of the things that we kept saying when we were hanging it is it looked like a painting.
Amazing.
So one of our volunteers in particular was extremely enamored with it and kept going. She's like, it is a painting. It is a painting.
I was going to
So-
send the painting with it, but then I didn't. I should have just sent it with it so you can see it.
I mean, you can definitely see that coming through, and again, it's interesting to see. You know, again, all three of you have a similar approach then in terms of how you're actually doing this, or you know, you might start with something, but you're not really following that, and you're allowing kind of your own instincts then to take over. So,
Definitely.
you know, and with some of the examples that you showed, how did you make the leap? Because I mean, some of yours are very different from what your rug ends up being. So are you just kind of seeing what feels right in the moment? Or, you know, are you kind of thinking about that as you're doing some of those initial sketches, like, oh, I might do this or I might do that? Or is it really once you start working on the rug that you start to see that?
Yeah, I think I think as I work on the rug, it kind of leads me, you know, something will be working or it won't, you know, and so a lot of ideas that I might have brought to it, I just have to throw them out because they just don't work as a rug, and I have to find my way. And so I kind of let the rug lead me and allow for a lot of changes to happen, just whatever needs to happen. And so I start with a very rough sketch. I haven't really tried to translate something, you know, exactly like what Heather's trying. And that might be an interesting process for me to attempt sometime, just to see what happens, just to really try to stick with an image that I've created in another medium and just see what happens, if I can pull it off. But as of now, I'm just totally willing to just throw it out and just let this go with what's ever happening on the rug. So.
And Sharon, it sounds like you have that sort of just, you feel it as you're doing it approach as well.
Yep, that's really, I'll start with a picture, and then I'll have it on my canvas, and then go from there. And it changes as it goes, and just trying the different. I've been really doing a lot of experimenting with not only wool, but with hooking with velvet and hooking with yarns. They've really brought in a whole different kind of dimension, and that's been a lot of fun. So.
Well, that's a perfect segue to my next questions. How has your practice changed over time? So Sharon, it sounds like you're starting to experiment with other things. How else has it changed?
Yeah, I guess in the beginning, whenever I want to really learn something, sometimes it can be intimidating, but I found that if I just get a kit and do it, and then I'll take off from there. And that's pretty much what had happened with my rug hooking. I started with a little kit, and then I went to I think it was a chair seat that was my own design, and I just kept going from there. But now I'm taking it into just putting in different other elements besides the gorgeous wool. So I'm bringing back some of my embroidery skills that I learned when I was really little, and I do like to embroider. To me, it's easier, and it also does give my hands a little bit of a break, and it's small and and just not as intimidating sometimes. So yeah, that's what I like to do.
And you've mentioned that you had to take a little bit of a break. So I imagine that's a pretty big change then in your practice and your process. But
Yeah.
what other changes have you made, or how have you seen yourself evolve as an artist?
Well, I have relied on my painting a lot more to just, keep it going, carrying me forward. And I also picked up embroidery in the last few years too. So that's kind of interesting. As I've had to let some of the rug hooking go, I've also find myself drawn to embroidery and some other, like a little applique, just experimenting with other things. But mostly my practice now is with painting, and I've been, just creating prints and things that I sell online, and just find that rug hooking's kind of taken a back seat. But this show has kind of sparked me to thinking about, what can I do next, and kind of gotten me back into it again. And I think if I'm careful and not, don't do more than a couple hours a day, maybe I can get back into a more of a rug hooking practice. So
kind of what you were alluding to, and you kind of have to give yourself a break, or else it exhausts you.
It's I think it's like a repetitive strain thing. Like if you do it all the time, then you get this like problem. And I had to get acupuncture. Actually, there was too much rug hooking. So yeah, it's in moderation. You can't do it all the time. And I get really excited sometimes about the rugs, and I just want to do it all day. But I have to have very strict rules about that. It's kind of, I don't know, it's not good, but that everyone else seems to have a similar sort of keep it not too much of a good thing. Yeah, but back to the question, I think for me the big change has been using my paintings more has really influenced the dyeing. Because when I started, I used to mainly just buy fabric yardage, and I'd often tea dye it to give it like an old look, but I didn't do that much dyeing. But as I was trying to sort of recreate all these colors I was finding in the paintings, I would dye more and more, and then I'd have all those new colors to sort of freestyle with. And I think it just made everything richer and more exciting. And getting into natural dyeing, because I feel like you can get colors, especially with like cochineal and all of these wonderful shades that with the chemical dyes, you can't quite, like somehow there's a magic in the natural dyes that comes through. I don't know if it's just in my mind or if it's real.
Well, there is definitely a vibrancy to some of those colors. I mean, like the reds that you can get from that, for example. There is absolutely a vibrancy that you see, and you see it in other textiles too. I mean, not just with rugs or quilts, but that richness that you're talking about, and that kind of depth of color that you see with some of the natural dyes. Then one of my favorite questions: what are you guys working on right now? So, what are your current projects?
Well, I'm trying to finish. I've been putting bindings on and doing some finishing on my projects that I have finished. So, and then I have one in my mind, the works. So, and that needs to get out soon, because that is a guild challenge. So it's got a deadline. So that's a good thing, because I do work good with deadlines. Otherwise, I'll just keep on keeping on with all kinds of things. So
sounds like you and Heather have that in common.
Well, I've been going through some old sketchbooks and stuff, trying to get some new ideas, and started. I found that the current events kind of derailed me. I was not producing a lot. I relied on commissions and things like that. but I feel like I'm ready to start some new projects. But one thing I've been looking at is figures in boats, because I feel like that image of just being swept along by events and just trying to manage as best you can on a river that's moving you along is just resonates for my what I feel like is happening right now with everything happening in the world. So I'm working up some ideas, and maybe there'll be a hooking in there with that imagery. Yeah.
And Heather, what about you?
I'm working on a new rug, and here I'll show you guys. This is I did this painting really fast. It's basically just fabric on my carpet that I kind of abstracted. So I'm using this as a starting point. And then there's actually another painting that there's not a picture of it here. So I combined the two paintings by cut and pasting them on the computer. And then from there, I made the line drawing, and I'm sort of doing like a half direct from this, but half sort of freestyle. So we'll see where it goes. It's probably about a third done, but I'm really enjoying it. I'm really excited about the colors. But this was, I had finished that garden rug, the painting one, and I was really into rug hooking, and I was so desperate for a new one that I came up with the material for that really quickly. But I think it's working out, so I'm excited about it.
And you alluded to it, you know, and we're saying how the, you know, events of the last couple of years have affected you. It's been a really tumultuous couple of years, no matter where you are. So, you know, Anne, you were talking a little bit about how it's affected your work. What about, I mean, how has what's gone on in the last couple of years affected the three of you?
Well, I think, you know, I kind of covered it, and just that, you know, I just found it's difficult to come up with new imagery. And so what I did was I did open myself up to several commissions, and just was able to keep working in that way. But yeah, it's just was difficult to find a way through it.
I also was doing quite a few sort of art contract jobs, which was good because then there's someone else, you know, because you're alone through the pandemic. But I was working with people online to do these projects, and then I found the rug hooking was actually a really grounding practice for me during the pandemic, and I've done more of it in the last couple of years than I have probably ever, because I found it, you know, something to do in the evening because you're not doing anything else. So that was a really good thing for me to have this craft to ground me through this.
I don't know how I would have gotten through it all without my work, whatever I would be doing with my hands. And if my hands weren't busy, it just sort of worked on my head more. So the more I could keep my head in an audiobook and just pull those loops or do those stitches, or I could put away all that was going on outside this world. But it was tough, very tough. And I just kept saying, I am so grateful. I am so grateful for having my work to get me through.
Yeah.
I don't know how people do it without having something to do. Or I would bake. That would be my other go-to, start baking. So
Sharon, which audiobooks do you like? What kinds of audiobooks? Because I love audiobooks too, and I'm always curious which ones people like the best. Or
well, right now, what am I listening to? I'm honest, I love listening to historical fiction.
Mhm.
That's really, yeah, and I'm doing one with, it's not Creatures Great and Small, but it's an Irish doctor in Belly Buckle Bowl. So it just it just really takes you. I like to go back into time when life was simpler. I'm not really into crazy mysteries. I like good work, but just take me back to a time when life was easier, not easier, simpler, if that's any, although they probably would argue that wasn't simple either, but it just was different. You know, it just was different. You just dealt with things differently, and yeah. How about you, Heather? What do you like to listen to?
I think I'm kind of similar in that I like it to be a bit escapist. I like, fiction, and I'm a huge Agatha Christie fan, going back, and Dickens, anything, 19th century, take me back. So it's very similar.
Yes.
We did have a comment pop up saying Patrick Taylor is so much fun to read or listen to. So suggestion for the two of you.
I will write that down.
I also do a lot of audiobooks too. So yeah, I kind of listen to anything and everything, but a lot of mystery stuff too. So.
Now, Sharon, you've mentioned, the Guild, and, we know the Guild that you belong to is not too far from the museum with the Cream City Rug Hookers. And Sharon and Ann, you kind of both alluded to, the loneliness I think everybody's kind of felt over the last couple of years, or that kind of disconnected feeling, and having this help you feel connected to others. Sharon, I know that the Guild has been really important for you. And Heather, do you guys participate in guilds? Do you participate in kind of that wider rug hooking community, or fiber or painting community?
I have never participated in a guild. I think there's plenty here in Michigan, but I've just found that, it's a solitary art process for me, and I like that. I had a good friend that I used to hook with, and that we would get together. She's Brenda Beerhurst. She's also designed some patterns that she sells, and she's a great rug hooker. I think she's left it for painting also, pretty much exclusively a painter now. So yeah. So no, I did not have that support when things closed down. So
I have not been involved with the Ontario Guild. I did this summer do a talk at a rug hooking studio in Ontario that was really great to meet some other rug hookers and sort of connect and learn some tricks that I didn't know. I think my community is more around painting and sort of people around. This past winter, I would do like still life painting with people, or plein air, go out, in the park and do some painting. So that was kind of more a way to connect through the arts for me, instead of the rug hooking. But I think it's always great to have the exchange, because everyone does it differently, and you can always find new ways and new ways of seeing it.
And Sharon, I know how important the Guild to you. Why, Anne, you mentioned it's a solitary thing for you. Sharon, what is it about participating in the Guild that draws you or appeals to you so much?
Well, you have all these like-minded ladies that, even though you might not be like-minded in all the areas of life, but you are like-minded in your wool stashes, and you just, yeah. And a lot of us are older, and so we we kind of enjoy each other more, and we can talk about our families and just having the camaraderie of, and then if we're on a project and we want to throw it down, which is what we do, and we want other people to help us with it. Oh, I'm going to throw my rug down, and you'll get 10 ladies around you giving you some opinions about what they think you should do. So it's fun. It's just, and then we have rug challenges through the years. And right now our challenge is going to be doing anything Wisconsin. So you have the state of Wisconsin, and you have to fill it what you think represents Wisconsin to you. So that's our newest rug challenge, and it's good. It's not due until not this April, but the following April, because we also have hook-ins, and we have hooker to hooker sales for our wool. So it's just, it's quite, we feed each other's addiction. You know, it's like, it used to be, you know, he who dies with the most wool wins. And now we're kind of reevaluating that with all of our stashes. But just different tips and tricks. I've also gotten into braiding, and that has been a lot of fun. That's new to me. So it's another element of that wool. And I'm actually putting a braid around a chair pad that I want to finish. So yeah. So it's nice to have. And I have to say, you know, I went to Australia, and I thought I'm going to look up rug hookers in Australia. And I did. And I found the most wonderful group of ladies. And I came back with, they called it Pragi, where we call it Prati. And that has just opened up worlds for me too, with my Pragi rugs. So yeah, the world of rug hooking is just wonderful.
We had a question that popped up actually for us about the exhibition. Hooked by Design right now is only in person. We at some point do hope to be able to get just a virtual tour of it, so that for those of you that can't come to Wisconsin right now, we'll at least be able to see it, but we don't have that up just yet. So right now it is only in person, but stay tuned. We'll work on it. So with that, ladies, I mean, we're just about to the end of the hour already, believe it or not. So any final thoughts, anything else you want to share that we haven't yet?
I just thank you for including me in the show. It's been so great to see all the different rugs that you've brought together, and in the beautiful barn. I don't know. It's a wonderful opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you so much. Like I said, I think this has like kind of sparked something in me. I think I'm going to start a rug. And just, you know, some of my commissions this past couple of years have been rug hookings. And so I think I did have that nice quiet space, you know, that rug hooking creates to give me some support through all this craziness. But yeah, it's time to start a new one. So I'll be doing that.
I feel very honored to be with you two ladies and doing this talk. So thank you. Thank you for having me join you.
Oh, thank you, all three
Thank
of you.
you.
We did actually have one more question that popped up. Somebody asking, where can we find more of your work virtually? So do you guys have websites?
I have a website. It's just my name.com, and there's more work there.
I have a website. Let's see. It's just my name, annwilley.com. And Spruce Ridge Studios also has images, patterns for sale. So.
And then one other comment I just wanted to share with, oh, I'm sorry, Sharon, did you have?
Oh, no, I don't have any website or anything.
Okay.
I have a few things on Facebook, although I'm not on Facebook very much,
Okay.
but I do have some of my things on there.
Just one comment I wanted to share with all three of you. It's somebody that said, it's so refreshing to know that these experts in the fiber arts are challenged with finishing projects. I feel like less of a failure, thanks. So, so you're not alone either. So, but definitely just wanted to share that. We also, so again, thank you so much for being willing to do this. Thank you so much for participating in the exhibit. As I mentioned, the exhibit is open through February 20th, Hooked by Design. I also, while we don't have it virtually, we do have an exhibit catalog available, so you can see pieces from the exhibition. Devin posted that link in the chat, so you can click on that link and pick up a copy of the catalog if you'd like. I'd also just wanted to remind everybody, again, this program was free. Your donations really help us to continue to be able to do programs like this. So your generosity is appreciated. And Anne, Sharon, Heather, thank you all so much for joining us today. And if you liked this one, which it looks like from the comments you did, so thank you. We do have another one coming up in February with 3 more of the artists from the Hooked by Design exhibition. So stay tuned, and we hope to see you again in February. And ladies, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool. Hopefully I'll get to meet you ladies somewhere.
Somewhere, sometime.
Yeah.
Yeah.